not saying that you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
I know, I'm not saying you're wrong. But if you're going to report this, then your theory has to be tight. Where does Hangman's Elm fit into all this?
We are talking about the movie DASHCAM. Now, confusingly, in 2021, there are actually 2 movies called DASHCAM. So we are talking about the one written and directed by Christian Nielsen and stars Eric Tabach. However, there is another movie, again called DASHCAM, and by the sounds of it, it does sound quite similar, but this is not that movie. Anyway, this is a kind of crime thriller dealing with kind of conspiracy theories, and it's clearly a movie that was made during the kind of COVID-19 outbreak, and I'll explain why as we go on. But essentially it focuses on this character who is an editor for a news show, essentially a morning news show, and he's given the task of editing a report that deals with a shooting, a police shooting, where a cop was killed along with a district attorney. And this is kind of a high-profile case because obviously there's a high-profile target that's involved. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories kind of going along. So he's giving this task to do on Halloween night, and he's emailed by the press office of the police station kind of all these documents that he can use in his report. However, he's accidentally emailed another kind of file which contains the unedited kind of footage, which shows that there may well be a larger conspiracy at play here. And the question becomes, what does he do with the footage? And it appears that, you know, there may be kind of shady government agencies that are kind of sniffing around to see what he does with it. Or could it just be that his own paranoia is getting the best of him? Let's discuss what I think works in this movie. So as I've mentioned, I believe this is a film that was made during the pandemic because we don't really ever get people interacting at the same, kind of on the same scenes together. It's all kind of shot one person at a time. The vast majority of the film takes place in this kind of guy's apartment. We see him kind of piecing together various types of footage to kind of like make sense of maybe what's happened here. So, you know, it has its limitations in regards to that, but what I do think this movie does well is have a unique flavour to it. I do feel the restrictions that maybe were imposed on filmmakers during this time, it makes it have the filmmakers have to overcome things by good writing. And this movie does have an interesting plot. If you like the kind of like the crime thrillers, especially stuff like the 70s that came out, we had a lot of kind of, you know, crime thrillers and conspiracy stuff in then, and it kind of reminds me of that flavour. I also have to say it's a good commentary on how the media works in 2021, and how not only does the media kind of skew maybe the truth, but also on the other side of the coin, how conspiracy theories and paranoia can breed, falsehoods. So I actually do think the movie does a good job here of really showing you that both could be true and both could be, used to muddy the waters somewhat. As we see really both things happen. You know, we see a plot where there may well be some kind of cover-up here, but we also see that the effects of paranoia and kind of going down that path leading to all sorts of speculations and kind of jumping to conclusions and kind of conspiracy theories where in actual fact the logical explanation may well actually apply. And this obviously, if you think back over the last couple of years that we've kind of had in the world, you know, you can apply a lot of these things, you know, to that. So I actually appreciate the movie very naturally having almost both points of view represented here. And, you know, you'll find quite often that movies will be kind of one-sided or another. Very rarely, I feel, does a film give you kind of, I think, equal measure of both and kind of let you really decide on what's going on. Obviously, there's a story here, so you can kind of maybe guess where the movie will end up going. But I appreciate the attempt here to have, you know, kind of like parallels to maybe what's kind of going on in the real world, which is, you know, lots of kind of conspiracy theories, lots of kind of media coverage over the last couple of years. but also, you know, and having an interesting story along with that. I have to say as well, I thought the acting was all very good from the cast here. I thought they did a believable job, and we kind of understand the guy's motivations for wanting to dig up, you know, dig and kind of maybe put himself in danger because he views he should be at a better position where he is, and he thinks he's now found his kind of big break into breaking into the kind of the mainstream as a presenter and things like that. So he's kind of grabbing this opportunity despite its obvious kind of dangers and things like this. So that I thought that was quite good. And you know, the mystery is interesting because it's one of these ones where you kind of grasp what's going on, but as the movie progresses, it naturally kind of like sprinkles in more information to understand kind of maybe why things are like they are. So let's talk about what doesn't work. The big one for me here is the fact of the matter is this is 70% of the movie a guy looking at a computer screen using editing software. It really isn't visually very interesting. There is a little bit of external shots just kind of in the last act of the movie, but for the most part this film is very dull to look at because it is mainly a guy looking at a computer screen, and I use editing software for these very videos, and it's just him kind of putting together these videos and stuff. And as interesting as the plot hook may be, as a film, I don't know if it's all that interesting to look at, to be honest with you. Visually speaking, this movie is not a particularly interesting film. It's also not an action film. So if you're hoping for, you know, a crime movie which has got kind of action sequences and it's, you know, it's labelled as a thriller, but I really wouldn't call it thrilling exactly. It's just a kind of a slow film with an unfolding kind of mystery. It's more of a crime drama than anything else, despite I think it's probably being labelled as a thriller. I certainly wouldn't call it thrilling, if that makes sense. So the movie does become a little dull visually. And to be honest with you, we see the sequences do feel somewhat kind of drawn out. And we see a hell of a lot of sequences with him, you know, splicing various footage together from different kind of means and things like this. And, you know, I understand what he's doing, but I don't know if it's visually speaking, it was particularly interesting or needed to be quite as, you know, in depth as seeing what he's actually doing. Like, we get it. We don't literally need to see him, you know, putting all this kind of like these different files together. I think the audience figures out pretty quickly what he's actually up to. I also have to say, I think the character seems incredibly naive. So if in this reality, again, not using any spoilers here, in this reality, if we believe what he's saying, what he's saying is true, and there is a kind of a government conspiracy, they're aware that he's kind of been sent this kind of particular file. It seems someone who's quite tech savvy in the fact that he's does it for a profession, you know, editing stuff. He seems like naive to think that people wouldn't be onto what he was doing, if that makes sense. And he takes kind of various kind of risks and uses technology. And I'm thinking, surely you would be like, you know, if knowing what has just happened, you would be paranoid and going to think, maybe I shouldn't do this on the internet and stuff like that. And yeah, it just seems a little naive to me, and it's kind of more for plot convenience and everything like that, really, than kind of the realistic crime thriller that I think the movie thinks that it is. So overall, I have to say, I do think this was an interesting movie with an interesting subject that does feel, you know, somewhat unique in its field, I have to say. That there have been a few, you know, like The Host and things like that, movies that are, you know, all based on kind of computer screens. And this one is shot not just through webcam stuff. It does have some traditional camera angles. So, it, you know, but it still feels unique enough, I would say. But ultimately, it feels drawn out. And the character, I have to say as well, our main character, although well acted, I don't think is very intelligently written. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.